Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, go ahead and leave a 5-star review, won't you please? Quick shout out to a couple of our sponsors for this episode. Substack. It's actually this new Substack. It's called standalone.substack.com. It's a new Substack by Melissa McCutcheon, an artist, and she was actually a former professor who quit due to the corruption of academia. She writes about topics that offer hope and insight into the bizarre groupthink world we're currently living in. You can subscribe at standalone.substack.com. It's free, and there are really valuable bits of information on here and advice regarding individual empowerment and ways to stay true to your principles in the face of adversity. She recently published a piece about the wave of resignations we're seeing in response to the vaccine mandates for companies with 100 or more employees. And she weaves in her own story about her decision to leave academia. So, again, that's standalone.substack.com. And you can check out all these different postings. She talks about critical thinking, narratives, traps, uncertainty, free speech, all the topics that I love. I think you guys would really like it too. Another shout out to Cushy Dreams. I know we're all dealing with a lot of anxiety. These are crazy, crazy ass times. But I really like Cushy Dreams because you can get all the health benefits of CBD without getting high. You too can join the men and women who are sick of vapes and gummies and want to smoke their CBD. They offer very high quality CBD in tins and in pre-rolls. I personally really love the pre-rolls. They come in these sweet little 5-packs. You could just throw it in your purse or pocket. There's different indica sativa blends like relax, dream, energy, create, hustle, peace. So if you want to be a little bit more up or a little bit more down before bed, they have you covered. Go to cushydreams.com. That's cushy with a K, dreams.com. And at the checkout, use CMP to get 20% off plus free shipping. Very high quality stuff. I'm a big fan of their products. Shout out to some stand-up dates. This Saturday, I'm going to be in New Jersey headlining Tiff's Ale House, also known as the Dojo of Comedy. That's this Saturday, November 6th, 9 o'clock show in Morris Plains, New Jersey. Then I'm heading to Hyenas in Dallas, December 15th and 16th. But before that, I'll be in Little Rock, Arkansas, December 13th at the Little Rock Looney Bin. And then I'll be at the Hyenas in Dallas the 15th and 16th. And at that Texas show, I'll be with Aaron Berg and Anthony Cumia, who, if you are a Compound Media person, that should be very exciting. Love doing shows with those guys. All right, speaking of guys I love doing shows with, I got a new one coming at you. He is a Missouri radio host. You may have heard him on KWOS News Radio. And also, he was a former presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party back in 2016, back when things were simpler, when life was great. Austin Petersen, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chrissy, thanks so much for having me.
I am really loving this 80s video game aesthetic that you have going on here.
Video games, yes. It's my Saved by the Bell shirt.
Yeah, I feel like I want to push you into a locker.
Yeah, right. Or yeah, exactly. Or this is like a 1980s arcade carpet, right? So when you walk into like an arcade from the 1980s, this would have been like the pattern on the carpet.
Oh yeah, and like when you would go on like roller skating parties, you go to like a roller skating rink, and like that pattern would be like the carpet on the walls, and it would just be all like a furry carpet. These were just simpler times, Austin. What happened? You look too young to have run for president. Can you explain that?
Yes. A moisturizer, like I use dishwashing soap on my hair.
Do you really?
No, but I mean, I posted this meme the other day about how men can like wash their hair with dishwashing soap and still look beautiful, right? And like women have to use all of these expensive products and stuff, and men can just do like basically nothing and look like me.
Yeah, it's a real trick. I spend so much money, but then you'll meet like an old Italian lady who's like, I just use ivory soap and prayer, and then her skin will look. I feel like a lot of it is genetics And right, if you smoke or if you drink, I don't know. I think maybe 30% of it is like products, but
Well, if you sell your soul to the devil, that also helps.
true, true. Were you ever tempted to sell your soul to the devil? Probably not if you're a libertarian.
No, but I'll tell you one of the funny jokes. Like, well, I ran for office in 2018 as well, unsuccessfully. But one of the
Ooh.
like, well, it was funny because like on Facebook, I had liked the page for the Satanic Temple. Just,
What?
well, it was just I just wanted to get the updates and see what they were saying because they say some weird, wacky stuff. I just wanted to get them in my stream. And so, like, I was running as a Republican at the time. And so, like, this whole rumor came around and was like, everybody in Missouri was like, oh, is he a member of the Satanic Church, the Satanic Temple? He likes them on Facebook. It's like, dude, just because you like somebody on Facebook, a page on Facebook does not make you a member of the Satanic Temple. But
No, you
that,
got to see what they're up to.
yeah, you got to keep an eye on.
So I want to know, Austin, how you went from child model. You were a model for FAO Schwartz.
Well, so that's funny. That's a funny story. That's hilarious. So yeah, I did do modeling back in my younger days. I'm 40 now, but
Girl, you don't look it.
oh, well, thank you, girl. Always good genes. But no, I do. I worked at FAO Schwartz, the toy store, and that was when I got to be a guest on the Conan O'Brien show because he came to FAO Schwartz. And I don't know if you've ever been to FAO Schwartz in Manhattan, but they have like
Oh
these
yeah.
but they have like the toy soldiers, right?
Well, it closed down. It's been closed for a few years, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
have
part
been
of my
there.
fault. That's part of my fault. But I was a toy soldier at FAO Schwartz in Manhattan. But at the same time, I was also like trying to do this, right, get in the entertainment business, try and like get on TV and make a career and stuff like that. But yeah, I used to do like there's photos out there, and I'm glad they never surfaced in my campaigns of me, shirtless, in underwear, modeling, and like generally looking, like Derek Zoolander, essentially. But
I don't know. I think it could have helped you.
yeah, I'm not sure. The number one thing that like people always ask, they're like, "Why aren't you married? Why aren't you married?" Like,
Do you
why?
really get that a lot because you're kind of involved? You're like poking your head in government life.
Yeah, well, so I literally just got married like 2 weeks ago, so that's
So shut up, everyone.
yeah,
Stop
exactly.
asking.
So shut
He's
up,
off
right?
the market, ladies.
Yeah, for some reason, like that, people think that that's like the most important thing. Like, if you're going to be in office, you need to be married. People need you to be a part of the community, and
You're
it's
not
like,
stable. Right.
yeah, exactly. You must be tied down like the rest of us, right? So society places you learn when you run for office. Society places a lot of demands that are kind of unspoken demands on the people that they choose to wish to represent them, right? And it's kind of like
Right.
it's very tribal, right? They're like, oh, do you smell like one of us? Yeah, it smells real weird. Does it smell like one of us? It's kind of like, okay, you gotta try and fit
We're
in,
sniffing you out. Yeah.
yeah, they sniff you out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because they look to your ability to handle responsibility and commitments, and marriage is like a really good example of both.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That's definitely it. People, yeah, they want to see that like how to commit to a relationship and things like that. And they think that if you go to Washington D.C. and you're a bachelor, then you're going to go and you're going to screw around and not do your job. And I can understand people thinking about that, but I really feel like when it comes to politics, one of the biggest challenges that we have, especially if you're on the right, is that we're these individualists, right? But we still have these kind of like tribal demands that we place on one another, and I do think it kind of limits our capabilities when it comes to legislating or having effective representation, because if you're always sending the same people who have the same traits, then you complain about the same old, the same old, the same old. Well, it's because you're always electing the people who have these same traits, right? So it's tough to break out of the mold when like conformity is so important to so many people, right? And I've never been much for conformity.
Do you think this is just for the Republican Party or like all of DC?
No, actually, I think that's a societal thing, right? I think Republicans, Democrats, everybody kind of has that same kind of like mentality of in group, out group, right? It's kind of like a social psychological issue that you face. We saw it in high school, you saw it in middle school, right? You got the in crowd, you got the out crowd, and the in crowd has to behave like this, and anybody who's on the out crowd has to be treated like this, and it's just kind of like a big social psychological problem. People who stand out and people who think for themselves, typically get castigated or cast out. It's like, there's this old Ralph Waldo Emerson quote where he talks about, I think his essay was self-reliance. I don't know if you've ever read Emerson, but he talks about, being misunderstood, and the people who are being misunderstood in society, people like Pythagoras, or Jesus, or Copernicus. All these great minds were so misunderstood in their time because they stood out and they stood up against the tribal views of their time. They stood against culture, and they had a new way of looking at things. And typically we kind of don't appreciate those people until they're gone.
Well, don't die yet. We still
Not
need
yet.
you. It's
Not yet.
interesting. Like, what would a loosening of these obligations or like qualifications look like? I mean, like on one hand, we have Dr. Rachel Levine, who is as diverse and breaking of the mold, I guess, as you can get. But I guess you're referring to like a little bit more like, yeah, it's okay if our representatives like aren't married, if we kind of ease up on that sort of obligation.
Well, like it's not to say that there aren't some people like that who do kind of get past the goalpost. Do you know Christian Cinema? That's the senator.
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
Okay, so I just retweeted her on my Twitter account. You should check her out at AP for Liberty, and she's wearing this dazzling, sparkly dress. She's a senator, U.S. senator, mind you. Yeah, there you go. Pull it up, scroll up, check it out. Whoa,
Ooh, she
look at
looks
that,
good. She looks like she's ready for New Year's Eve.
dude! I know. Look, click at that, but blow that up bigger, right? So,
Yes, she's ready for the weekend.
yes,
She wore this on a Tuesday.
she's a U.S. senator. Exactly. We're in this
Yes,
on
girl.
exactly. So I mean, like that kind of willingness to stand out. That's
She
rare.
seems DTF, to be honest.
Honestly, it would, but but married. So, but like that kind of that to me, that's courage. That's brave.
This is courage. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love it. I want to see more of that, just because I've got a little bit of an anarchist streak. Like, for me. Oh yeah, check out that post too. Oh yeah, that's innocuous. All right, so
the boomer posting.
Yeah, the boomer post. All right, so right there, that's Fox News, right? So apparently there was some kind of like shooting threat, right? And so tourists were on the run, and this was a comment I found posted underneath this. This is like an hour ago. That's what they get. No American should be vacationing in a third world country unless they supported the economy of every one of these United States.
Well, that's like not really.
No, I mean, God,
That's not a reasonable expectation there.
That's a very unhappy person. But
oh yeah, that's most of Twitter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's true. But Twitter is not real life. God, I tell you,
Chrissie, I forget that all the time.
Me too. But we got to remember that. When you get your head away from the screen and you look around at the world around you, at the splendor and the majesty of what is real, like, you forget that Twitter is just not real, right? The people on there are manic, they're depressive,
they're bots.
They're propaganda, like they're foreign intelligence agents, spreading propaganda. So, but it does mess with you. I don't know about you, but every once in a while a tweet will get me, and I'll lay awake at night and be like, God, I wish I hadn't read that. You know what I mean? Like,
you lay awake at night thinking about tweets. What like bothers you the most right now?
People like, I kind of live a life in public, right? So people know me personally. So if somebody says something hateful that's like really personal, like about, it's maybe somebody, a family member that they know, or something
okay,
like something like personal, because like it just get, because I'm a big feeling guy, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm kind of like not afraid to.
And lightning bolts and other neon shapes on your sleeve. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, That's the price you pay, right, for being in the public eye. You know,
It's true.
people shouldn't be coming for your family or your relatives, but,
They
you know.
will. That's the first, and that's the thing is that like people who are hateful, that's the first thing that they go for. You know what I mean?
I'd like to have just all things to drink out of. You're drinking out of, like, an Oktoberfest, like, what, 40-ounce beer stein?
Yes,
It's water,
exactly.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's more.
I like that that's just what you have. I feel like you have a little bit of a bachelor pad situation going on there.
Yeah. So this is my karate dojo. This is. Um, you think I'm joking, but I'm actually not. So
Ah,
this is well, like karate master whose style I've studied for years, and
okay.
this is like a famous Japanese painting right here in the background.
Oh, wow.
Um, but like right here is where I kind of like do my when COVID started, I needed to work out from home, so my wife and I started doing karate here in the house, and I was like, well, why don't we like take this room and turn it into an actual Japanese
Yeah.
style dojo? So
We
this
can
is
have a
like
room to kick each other in. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, exactly. So we've got like you can't really see it here, but I've got like a Japanese like battle rifle on the wall over here from World War II, and
Cool.
and then like yeah, like a bunch of like advertisements for ramen noodles and stuff like that.
Very Asian. Yes, I love it.
Yeah, yeah,
You're just like anything Asian we can put in
yeah.
this room.
Fucking weed.
Ramen, old dry cleaning receipts. Let's do it. What made you wanna get involved in politics?
So I was inspired by Congressman Ron Paul's presidential campaigns, and I kind of always considered myself somebody who believed in freedom in a broad sense, but I didn't. When you believe in freedom in a broad sense, you look at things like the flag or the national anthem, and these kind of broad concepts of patriotism, but I had never really sort of narrowed down my beliefs to like a philosophy until Congressman Ron Paul in 2007, started his presidential campaign, and then I realized, oh my God, there's an actual legitimate political philosophy for what I believe. I need to learn more about this. So I was living in New York City at the time, and
Oh, cool. What part?
yes, yeah, I lived in Astoria, and
Oh, I used to live in Astoria.
yes, it's kind of like a rite of passage for anybody in the entertainment business.
Yeah,
I mi
Astoria is also known as the Upper West Side of Queens. Yes,
yes,
it's fancy.
I miss the Greek food like crazy, you would not
Me
believe.
too.
Yeah.
I've been unable to find a Greek salad that rivals, the spot that was, like, right on the corner by the subway. It was, like, near the Broadway
You're
subway stop.
Steinway or okay, Broadway, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I lived off Steinway, yeah. But so in 2007, I'm living in New York and I'm working at FAO Schwartz and I'm doing like, the occasional one-off, acting or modeling job or whatever. And Congressman Ron Paul runs for president. And so me and a bunch of guys started up this meetup group. Well, we called it like kind of like we held these tea parties, and these tea parties would just have thousands of people showing up. And so we turned this like 12-person group in Manhattan into a 1,200 person strong, organization, and raised millions of dollars for Ron Paul. And
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, so when you raise that kind of money, you get a lot of attention for things like that. So the Libertarian Party at the time was hiring for a volunteer coordinator. So in 2008, I got offered a job to go work for the Libertarian National Committee in Washington, D.C. So that's kind of like how one thing led to another. I worked for like a bunch of various think tanks, and I ended up at Fox Business Network for a couple of years as a producer.
Oh, cool.
And so I've had a pretty diverse career in like liberty circles. And it was when in 2015 when it was Hillary versus Trump, I was like, okay, I'll just barely be constitutionally old enough to run. And I feel like, Rand Paul at the time was like not polling so well. I was supporting him. But I thought at that time that all I have to do is just be a normal person, talk about the Constitution, talk about limited government, talk about freedom, and not, just not be crazy. And people will be attracted to that because, people didn't like Hillary because they thought she was psycho and Trump was nuts. And so, I kind of made a name for myself just by being a sort of, I won't say moderate libertarian, but just like being a reasonable libertarian at the time.
Yeah, you definitely have, like, the hair to run for office.
Yeah, it's what do we call it? What's the hair dye
Like
they call
journalist chic.
just for men? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, but that was all. To be honest, I didn't become president of the United States at 35 years old, so big surprise. But I feel like I made a positive impact and inspired a lot of young people, and that's really like the best you can expect with like third party campaigns, is to inspire a new generation of people to come in and get involved in politics, and to fight for limited government, and to fight for individualism, and the concepts that I really deeply believe in. I'm involved in politics because I believe in something, not because I'm trying to get something or just build a career, but because I'm deeply passionate about these ideas and I want to share them with other people.
Did you have a journey where you were maybe more came of age kind of like as a Republican and then realized you were libertarian, or did you come from it like like I was a total lefty right out of college, and then it took like meeting Larry Sharp for him to sort of like gold pill me. That's a phrase you libertarians like to use. I'm like, what is it? Gold member?
Yeah,
Uh
that's funny.
yeah,
Larry Sharp's an awesome guy, by the way. If you're gonna meet any libertarian, then he's the guy that you want to meet. Like, good
not
first.
you.
No, I mean, I can be abrasive, and I'll, you know what? I'm polarizing, so that's good and bad. Like, you either really like me or you effing hate me, and that's just how I've always been in my life, and I admit that. But Larry Sharp is much more of the, like, oh, like, speaks to the masses much better. Um, but yeah, I mean, for me, party is always about like. A party isn't about ideas, right? A party is just about a political strategy. But to me, libertarianism is about ideas, right? Republicanism is a party. Or I mean, when you're without getting too much in the weeds, Chrissy, like, what does republicanism even really mean, right? Conservatism is a philosophy,
Right.
but there's a lot of different forms of conservatism. And as I learned more and more about libertarian philosophy, I realized there's actually multiple different forms of libertarianism as well. So, I run in the spectrum, where I'm not an anarchist, but I definitely believe in a lot less government than most Republicans, right? So I'm not a conservative. And so, if you're getting into the nitty gritty, I call myself a minarchist, which is a minimal, like basically almost an anarchist,
A
but
small I'm picturing like a small anarchist, like a tiny
yeah, like
anarchist.
right.
Yeah.
But like, there was a philosopher in the 1970s who wrote about the philosophy of minarchism. And essentially, if you type in night watchman state on Wikipedia, then you'll pull up a whole like list of explanations of what a minarchist truly is, right? So essentially, cops, courts, nukes, and that's pretty much it, right? That's all government should really be responsible for. But everything else in society, there you go, the night watchman state.
Or minarchy, whose proponents are known as minarchists. How
Right.
cute!
Yeah.
Is a model of a state that is limited and minimal, whose functions depend on the libertarian theory. Right libertarians support it only as an enforcer of the non aggression principle by providing citizens with military police, courts, which protects them from aggression, theft, breach of contract, fraud, and enforcing property laws.
So there it is. So essentially,
So this is the last stop before like full anarchism, I
yeah,
guess.
this is the last stop before full blown anarchy. And to me, I think it's a beautiful idea, right? It's kind of an ideal, and there are certain people are like, oh, well, when have things like this ever existed? Well, there have been forms of this throughout history. The most recent, in American history, would have been right after the end of slavery, the 1880s in the United States. And it's no coincidence, by the way, Chrissy, that leftists and liberals smear the 1880s in the United States American history by calling it the age of robber barons. But some people like to refer to that era as the Gilded Age. And it was a time of property rights. It was a time when women were organizing for the right to vote. It was a time when women were starting to own property here in the United States, and it was a time when we had a currency that was backed by something substantial like gold. And I feel like people denigrate that time in our history, but it was one of my favorite presidents. Grover Cleveland was president of the United States at the time, and he was, I won't say he was a minarchist, but he was much more of a classical liberal. And then, during that time, that was when we really saw the industrial era and the rise of industrial capitalism here in the United States. And I think it was one of the best, sort of experiments in minarchism that the world has ever seen. And there have been a few other experiments as well in other countries and throughout history in different times. But for me, I think this is one of the most fascinating and least studied eras, and most maligned by critics in American history. The 1880s, the Gilded Age, fascinating period of our history, and probably the closest to the ideal that you could get. Did it have problems? Yes. Were blacks still treated as second-class citizens? Absolutely. Did improvements need to be made to the American system? Completely. But utopia literally defined means no place. There is no perfect society. We don't live in one now, and we never will. But things can always be better. But sometimes we look at these examples from the past, Chrissy, and we're like, hey, maybe we can learn something from that.
Oh yeah, I think any time before TikTok was a great time. How far is our current society from like what would where we are currently at right now a move towards minarchism, or like is that even possible right now? A lot of people criticize libertarians as like not being realistic, not dealing with what is in front of them. Too pie in the sky expectations, right? So
That could
I
be
don't know. I
true.
guess what would you sort of how would we get there? Is
I
that
would,
even
I agree. I
possible?
agree with you. Yeah, libertarians have their own problems, but libertarianism, the philosophy, I think, is correct. Right? You can't judge. It's like judging, Christianity for the Christians, right? So it's like saying, was Christ's, love a beautiful expression of humanity, of perfection? I think yes, it was. But are his followers all that great? No, they're really not. So it's kind of that same concept there. But in terms of being an idealist, you got to be an idealist, Chrissy. I mean, like think about it for yourself personally, individually, right? You're competing in one of the most difficult careers in the world. You're trying to be a comedian in New York City, and at one of the it's one of the most competitive careers in the world, right? You've got to be an idealist, right? Don't you? I mean, you want to be like Joe Rogan with that $50 million Spotify contract one day,
But keep my
right?
hair. Yeah,
Right.
ideally. Hmm.
Exactly, right. So you have to have those dreams, right? And you have to visualize what you're working toward. What is that ideal, right? And yeah, you got to have practical steps to get there. If all day you just sit around and dream about it, then and don't take steps towards it, then yeah, it's not really all that practical. But like you're doing it. So if, like, for example, this podcast, right? Getting your name out there, right? Building up your Twitter following and going out to do gigs and stuff in New Jersey, and getting your sponsors for this podcast in here. Those every little building block, every little step is a portion on that path. And libertarians do take practical steps. It just depends on which libertarians you're looking at. If you're only focusing on the ones who are out there just talking shit on Twitter, then yeah, you're going to have a negative impression of libertarians. But the ones that I like to follow are the ones who are out there, arguing in front of the Supreme Court for our gun rights. Heller versus DC and Chicago versus McDonald, and there's these institutions like the Institute for Justice, and oftentimes like the yeoman's work that's being done to fight for liberty isn't sexy, right? What's sexy is people who post mean tweets, right? You're looking at those and you're thinking, aha, that's really funny, but it's
Like
not
that
really
looks easy. Yeah.
yeah, that looks easy, but it's not. Maybe it's not really actually, advancing the cause of liberty. But quite frequently, the work that's being done to actually advance our liberty is not that exciting. It's not super interesting. It's actually kind of boring. But quite frequently, that's the reality. That's where it's really getting done. So yeah, a lot of libertarians can absolutely be pie in the sky. A lot of them are doing absolutely nothing to advance the cause. But there are a few, heroes out there. It's just that if I told you their names, if I listed off their names right now, you'd have no idea who they were.
No, I'm familiar with Dave Smith. Is he a hero?
Yeah, Dave Smith's a good guy, and he's certainly bringing a lot of people over there. But I would think somebody like Clark Neely, right, is somebody who is libertarian lawyer who's out there, who's actually, going into courts, right, and going out there and fighting, legal cases and writing amicus briefs, and you know, uh, maybe, I think people who are libertarians who are in the media, as one, I can't denigrate us too much, but like for the ones who, I gotta give mad props to those who are actually, in the legislatures, in the courts, fighting those court battles, trying to, get maybe people like Kyle Rittenhouse out of jail. Right, those are the people who are doing the
Yeah,
real.
it's so insanely how I can't believe it's even brought to court. It's just so obvious that it's self-defense. It's like it's obviously just a very personal witch hunt on him.
Well, he's white, so that
That always will hurt you. Yeah,
he's committed the original sin of being born a white male. So, and if he
true.
had used an AR-15, and if it had been a shotgun, or if it had been like a deer rifle or something like that, it probably wouldn't have gone as far as it had. But he's a white kid with an AR-15, so.
So yeah, that's good. Yeah, he should have done a Molotov cocktail or like a dumpster on fire.
All right, if
That's
he'd been wearing an Antifa shirt, he would have been fine.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. What were your thoughts on Joe Jorgensen? How do you feel like she could have done had a better run?
I mean, I don't really have anything negative to say about Joe Jorgensen. I think she's a perfectly nice person, but she's the right candidate for the wrong time, right? So essentially, when the COVID-19 lockdowns were happening, and when the riots were occurring, like that was such a huge opportunity to be out front and center fighting for liberty in a way like a warrior, like a beast.
Yeah.
And she was just a
Yeah.
little bit,
She was
mild.
quiet.
Yeah, a little bit mild. And here's the thing: in a year when all of the tensions weren't at a fever pitch, and we weren't in the middle of a pandemic and all that, that approach might have been more successful. Maybe it would have been more successful in 2016, for example, when, like, again, it was just Trump and Hillary, and they were crazy, and she would have been like the voice of reason or whatever. Certainly, I think better than Gary Johnson. But it just, like I say, right candidate at the wrong time. We in 20, what was it, 2020? Yeah. So that was the
Seems
time.
like ages ago.
I know it does. So much has happened in the last year,
Yeah. Seems like
but
5 years ago.
God, it does. Absolutely. Yeah. So again, I got nothing bad to say about her. I just feel like at this moment, a third party is not what the country needs right now. A lot of people who are like rebels and love to, like, talk smack about the two parties will say, oh, well, America really needs more third parties. Actually, I don't really think that that's what people really need right now. It's not that you need, because people are choosing these candidates, right? If you wanted to go and vote in a primary for a candidate and get involved in politics, you can go, vote. They're not choosing the people that libertarians want them to choose. It's not that they don't have a choice. They do have a choice. They can go and vote in a primary. They can vote. Libertarian candidates are on the ballot. They're just not voting for them, right? So something's up, right? It's kind of like it's like that old marketing phrase. I was reading about it earlier. It's like, when, like, dog food manufacturers will create all of this marketing for their dog food, and then when the dogs don't eat it, they'll blame the dog. Right?
Oh. Yeah.
It's like, maybe you need to make better dog food. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's actually your fault because you need to make better dog food. But,
Yeah.
you can't, the parties operate, and it doesn't matter which party it is, Republican, Democrat, the parties operate kind of like big corporations, in the sense that if you try and tell the bosses of a big corporation that they need to redo their structure and change what's going on because it's
Yeah,
not
they don't
working,
want to hear what you have to say.
they don't want to hear that shit. They want to keep it exactly the way it is. Because I tried to shake things up in the Libertarian Party in 2016. I tried to say, hey, we got to change what we're doing here, or we're not going to win. If we do the same old shit, people are not going to buy it. And you know what? They didn't buy it, but they didn't want to be told. The Libertarian Party did not want to be told by some young 35-year-old punk kid, that we got to change shit up and we got to shake things up. They don't want to hear that. They wanted to be like, no, we want to keep things exactly the same so that the donations will continue to go into my pockets and I can, siphon off that sweet, sweet cash. So
That sweet, sweet cash. It is still very encouraging when you see a smaller candidate win in any sense. So we have like this truck driver, Edward Durr, who just won GOP New Jersey State Senator. He beat Steve Sweeney, who held the position for 11 years. And this guy is kind of famous right now because he spent 150, only he raised a few thousand more, but only spent $153 on his campaign. And I think he just went around and like made copies and like went to Dunkin' Donuts, and like that's how he got his name out there. So stories like this always make me kind of happy.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So at first glance, you got to think to yourself, why would this happen? Well, the reason why this has happened is because that Democrat was so bad. And that's the thing. I was talking to somebody on my show earlier today. I was like, well, why do you think that the Republicans won the gubernatorial race in Virginia? He's like, honestly, I don't think that it was everybody just really loved this Glenn Youngkin guy. I don't think people even really knew who he was. He goes, I just think that the Democrats were running the most vile campaigns of we hate parents and we will tell you what we're going to teach your kids and you will have no say in it and you will shut up about it, you racists. And that's why they lost. So it wasn't that the Republicans won so much as it was the Democrats that lost,
And even still on mainstream media today, the CNNs, the NBC, the MSNBC, as they recap, they go, "Oh, I guess Democrats had the mood wrong," or they're like doubling down on denying the fact that CRT is being taught in schools yet.
Right. They said the CRT is not real. I was watching this on MSNBC.
It doesn't
CRT
exist.
is not real, but you're a racist if you oppose it.
Yeah.
So if it's not real, how can you be a racist if you oppose it?
Yeah.
But, and then what was it? Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. She's like, well, the Democrats weren't radical enough. I'm like, babe,
girl.
That's not it, honey. That is not it. But everybody lives in this world of confirmation bias, right? We're all just trying to confirm our biases. Everybody's going to see into it. Everybody on Twitter last night was just like, this proves exactly what I said. Left, right, libertarian, it didn't matter who you were. Everybody's biases were confirmed by what happened in Virginia, right? It was white supremacy. Okay, well, it's like the problem is that like when you kind of look at this from outside the box, you just kind of like, nothing's changed. Yes, something has changed, but has anyone's minds been changed? Maybe a few people here or there on the margins, but I don't know. Not to be too cynical.
You sound a little cynical. Yeah.
Well, bit.
And then there's kind of like a dead heat going on in Jersey for the governor race between Phil Murphy and Jack Ciattarelli. I think he just posted on his Twitter like that there's like maybe 1% left of the vote, and he's like, we're gonna wait till it's all counted. Here is Jack's. I mean, I don't know. He seems like a likable guy. Here's him talking about how he's like,
time for another Jack chat. This might be the most important Jack chat yet. So please watch and share.
2
days ago,
he at least doesn't look like a gay mannequin in the way that Phil Murphy looks.
To win the race for governor here in New Jersey. Despite what the polls, press, and pundits were saying, I knew I could win. Why? Because every time a governor of this state has taken us too far off track, the decent, hardworking people of New Jersey have always risen up and said that's rated by about 1%.
Okay, so we're at 1%.
4 million ballots counted. There are still tens of thousands of vote by mail and provisional ballots yet to be counted.
And then, of course, you see,
the governor's victory speech
like
last
obviously,
night,
Twitter's going, "Oh, it's
victory,
I think Ian Smith, who runs the Belmar gym in the Tillis gym in Belmar, he's like a big anti-censorship, like he is anti-mandate. He's kept his gym open like pretty much nonstop. He's getting fined like up the wazoo, and he was showing screenshots like, oh, look at all these counties that flipped, just over a couple of hours. There's people who think there might be some election shenanigans going on here.
Well, what was funny too is that like last night, when was it last night or the night before?
Irregularity. to the voter
the
integrity
Republicans and right wingers before the race was called for in Virginia for the Virginia candidate, they were already like, conspiracy theorizing about, the stolen election and all that kind of stuff. But then once the Republican won, it was like, right? So it's kind of like, the election is stolen when you win, and it's when you lose, and when you don't lose, then the election is not stolen.
I mean, after 2020, it's not a crazy thing to have real concerns about election integrity. Like, that's not just being a sore loser.
I think so, but like the problem is that like on a national level, like because all of the voting like processes in each state are so different. Like it's I'm not saying it's impossible to rig a national election, because I know that like statewide elections have absolutely been rigged in the past and been proven to be rigged. Like Lyndon Johnson's campaigns are like some of the most famous examples of that. But on like for a presidential level, like when it comes to like, you still have an electoral college, right? And it's like, so it's massively difficult to rig something like that. But I mean, here's the thing, like, I work in, conservative, radio, and like, if you don't toe the line on things like that like the base really wants you to, to tell them, then it's dangerous, man. It's dangerous to take a different opinion on some of these things, right? So like when people come on my show and say things like they don't think the election was rigged, I mean, that they catch a lot of hell for that. It's dangerous to speak up, when everybody, because the fact is that people don't like, people want to hear their opinions read back to them in their voice. So it's that's why you don't see more people sort of stepping up and standing out, right? In order to do that, you kind of have to have like the Joe Rogan fuck you money in order to really be free. You have like, I'm surprised you haven't brought up Dave Chappelle yet tonight, but I mean, like, in order to be a comedian like Dave Chappelle and to say what Dave Chappelle says,
you have to have fuck you money, of course.
Because Chrissy, I mean, for God's sakes, if you said the things that Dave Chappelle says in your stand-up sets, do you think you would get booked?
I don't know. I've already been like canceled kind of a lot. I think it would be just like pretty similar, just with more money,
Right. But I mean, like, if you had fuck you money, you could go do your sets, say whatever the hell you really want, and then not have to worry about it. But I mean, like, can I ask you honestly, like, is there some small part of you sometimes that gauges, should I do this joke not because it's funny, but because it might not go over very well with the audience?
Well, like, what I talk about on the podcast is different than what my stand-up set is like. And even I've had people be like, oh, wow, I expected you to be way more political in your stand-up. Like, my stand-up is a result of like 11 years of like writing jokes. So it's not just who I've been in the last 2 years. It's like, it's kind of been like a lot of my whole adult life, like a reflection of it. And I definitely know politically where the audience is lying, like definitely during the host set, or at least during the feature set, I can be like, okay, what are they laughing at? What's turning them off? My goal is not to divide the room. But on the other hand, like if I think something is really funny and it might be a risk and I might get some groans, like I'll definitely still go for it. Like I really try not to censor myself. Like as long as it's funny, I'm going to do it.
What do you think? Did you watch Dave Chappelle's most recent special?
Yeah, I did. And like, I've talked about this on other episodes, and a lot of people agree it wasn't his funniest special. And, he had a lot to address because he is not going to be like, up on Twitter responding to people for like months and years, like this was kind of like his big response to questions people had been asking of him. And yeah, not like he's saying a lot of groundbreaking things, women have babies. Like he's not saying anything that's crazy. Like but he's also saying the things a lot of us are thinking, and we need somebody to say right now.
Right,
it sucks that it takes somebody like him to just say something so basic, something so basic such as like women are the ones who can have kids.
But isn't that amazing that how much the culture has shifted? That like him saying that is an act of courage. right?
But at the same time, like then you have like the insane trans community, like hearing what they want to hear, or not even bothering to listen to his special, and then just coming out with their criticisms, and
Right.
people give them the time of day because they're a protected victim class.
Right. So like I wonder, and I kind of don't know much about how like you would think about something like this, but like in terms of like free speech and cancel culture, right? Like how like the chilling effect on free speech that this cancel culture has is like it's not the government, right, stepping in and like saying, "Oh, you can't say this," right? It's not like
Right.
communist China, but it's almost a government in the sense that like these people like are just trying to destroy your livelihood. It's like Dave Chappelle said in that special. He says, if you destroy a man's livelihood, you might as well be killing him, right? And so it's kind of like it's a dangerous thing to be in our line of work because you essentially you paint a target on your back every single day if you take risks. And if you don't take risks, then you don't stand out. So it's kind of like walking a tightrope, you know?
Yeah, especially like even on you got to just learn and be smart, and like if you have a channel on YouTube, it's knowing what things not to say that are going to get you banned. Like if you have a Twitter account, especially like I try to be like creative with jokes, and I try to get my point across, but like through jokes or in a joking way. So you're less likely to be accused of like one horrible thing or the other. And you'll always have haters. You always have people who want to purposely misunderstand you to throw you
Right.
under the bus, but it's all about like, yeah, learning how to express yourself and be true to yourself without compromising too much at the same time, like being smart and not taking like unnecessary risks.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So, but it is tricky. It does suck. And I feel very much like I've been called to fight for this. I didn't care about anything political like a couple of years ago. I just was like, I didn't see how it applied to me at all. And then I was like, oh, like I might I might not be able to make fun of certain groups of people. What? I gotta stand up for this.
Well, there's like that old quote. It was like, if you want to know who rules over you, then find out who you're
Right.
not allowed to criticize.
Who you can't make fun of. Yeah. It's so true. It's so important. We gotta laugh. From Matthew Mahler, interview the redheaded Petersen. She's way cooler. Is that your wife?
That's my fresh new ginger
Fresh
wife.
wife. Ooh, I like a fresh wife.
Freshly wifed.
From Rob George, AP and Steffi were friends of mine way before they got married. I can't think of a more perfect match.
Oh, okay.
Aw.
Thanks, Rob.
How did you meet her? Did you already tell me?
Yeah, no. So she saw me when I ran for president and came to a speech that I gave at Hillsdale College in Michigan, and she sat in the front row, and I remember I met her there, and then she volunteered for my Senate campaign in 2018 and came to Missouri a bunch of times and was like #1 volunteer, worked harder than anybody else ever has. And the thing that kind of like changed our relationship dynamic from like friends to like, yo, well, this is special now. We went on a trip together, canoe trip, and it was like there was this cave.
Did you
that
get
we
in
like,
her canoe right away, or did you?
no. So we like got off the canoes, went into a cave, and like I'm like just in my swim trunks, and she's in her bikini or whatever, and we're like walking through the cave, and at one point it's like if we were all helping each other to like get across this like chasm or whatever. And then we got across the other side and everybody's fine. And then I like feel this little arm like slip around my waist and like squeeze my love handle. And I was just like, I was like, ooh, I was like zing. And I kind of felt that kind of, yeah, I kind of felt like I was like freezing. And then all of a sudden I wasn't cold anymore. And I was just like, oh, okay, something special is happening here right now. And then and then we went into the cave as friends and we came out as something else.
Wow. Where's this cave?
Yeah, it's here in Missouri, the Current River in Missouri. Yeah.
Okay, cool. The Love Cave.
Yes.
Go to Missouri if you guys want to find love. Or this is a perfect time for my other ad read. Some of you guys might be upset with some of your dating apps right now. We all know that they're mostly terrible. They're superficial. You're swiping faces. You don't know who's an expert, who's not. feels like a waste of time. The solution is values-based matching. If you're conservative, things probably won't work out with someone who's a total lefty. Same with religion, lifestyle, how to raise your kids, other core values. Sure, somebody could change to meet you where you are, but why not just meet somebody right at the gate who values what you value? Jerome is a new free new values-based dating app. You pick your deal breakers and deal makers. Jerome is also video only for more human interactions. So go to jerome.date/CMP in your phone's browser, click the iOS or Google button to install. Use the invite code CMP to sign up. And if you're already matched up, like Austin here, you can tell your friends and you can tell your partner to tell theirs. That's drom.date/CMP. Design and meet your perfect match. It's free to use. Woo, baby,
Oh
I'll
my
go
God.
on there.
I'm so thankful that I don't have to use dating apps.
Which ones were you on?
Well, I did Tinder, Hinge, Coffee Meets Bagel. I mean, I did them all, man. And it was, by the time, like, you know, Steffi and I started dating a few years ago, it had started to get so toxic on these dating apps. Swipe left if you voted for Trump. Like, at the time, I hadn't voted for Trump because I didn't vote for Trump the first time. But, like, I was
Same.
swiping left on those profiles because I'm like, I don't want my politics to be like the front and center upfront reason why I have to like meet someone or like to qualify for someone. Not to say that those things are important, but like Trump really broke a lot of people, Chrissy.
Yes. Yeah.
Broke them. It's like,
I don't get it. I don't understand.
It's like earlier today I was talking about something completely unrelated and somebody was like, well, January 6th was worse or something.
Yeah,
I'm just
right.
like,
It was not a big deal.
It wasn't a big deal. A bunch of like police officers got like, you know,
Heart attacks.
Yeah, they got heart attacks, but you know, that's the least that they can do for American freedom to defend our democracy, whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just like, the amount of people who have Trump derangement syndrome is just massive. And here's the thing: without Donald Trump, what do the Democrats have now anymore? I mean, I think that's why they lost.
They have Ron DeSantis, and they have January 6th. That's it.
But Ron DeSantis doesn't say anything near as crazy or stupid as Donald Trump does, and that's why he's even more dangerous because he doesn't
more
have
boring. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep, exactly. He's more boring, and that's more dangerous. That's much more dangerous to the left.
Aaron A says, I called AP and Steffi at the Senate campaign duet.
Okay, yeah. So I did karaoke fundraisers for my campaign where we would like sing, and Steffi came in, and before we were dating, she would like sing duets with me, and so Aaron Abel, who's my buddy there, he like knew that we were going to be a thing when he saw those duets. So.
Oh, what was your song?
So we actually sang it at our wedding ceremony too, or our wedding after party. It was Cruisin'. Have you ever heard of Cruisin'? Smokey Robinson?
Yeah, I think.
So like the duets version was like Huey Lewis and Gwyneth Paltrow. They did in this movie Duets. So Steffi and I sang that for the campaign, and then we sang it at our wedding the other day.
Oh, that's precious. Cool.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, you're glad to be off the market, but at the same time, you didn't like feeling kind of pushed to do it by the party.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like that feeling because you know they automatically assume that you're gay, right? If you're not married, then you must be gay.
Especially with a shirt like that. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. But it was funny too because like I think I was like during the campaign I had like two different girlfriends at the time. Like one at the beginning of the campaign, and then we split up and I dated somebody else. But I couldn't like trot them out, you know,
right.
Campaign events and be like, no, look, I'm not gay. I'm dating this beautiful woman, blah, blah, blah. Just because then they would have been like, oh,
look at all these women I date. I'm not gay. It's a different one every week. What are you talking about?
Exactly. So anyways, but I am happy to be settled down with Steffi in large part because Steffi's an amazing woman, of course, but also in part because the dating, I don't know if you're single or taken or anything, but
I'm dating somebody. Yeah.
Okay, well, you're lucky then. You got somebody, but I mean, you know, I don't know how long have you guys been dating?
Not long, just like 7 years.
Oh, that's how long 7 years. Okay, well then 7 years is long enough to have not been in the marketplace where it is so freaking toxic. It is a nightmare. I mean, I feel bad for young people today
I do
because
too.
ghosting and imagine I was talking about this on my show the other day. They have this new thing called golden penis syndrome where
No, what is that like a libertarian thing? Is this like gold
well,
pilling?
it might be. But
Like you sleep with a libertarian and you're forever
right,
changed.
you get the golden penis syndrome.
That
It's like the
sounds
good.
fun.
No, but it's like so on college campuses, it's like 3 women to every 1 guy. So guys know that they have all this
Alright.
power, and this power is that like the golden penis because they can do whatever they want and they can ghost chicks and they can just pump and dump, do whatever, and treat them horribly because they know that they're going to get another girl waiting for them. Because girls don't want to date guys that aren't at least college educated like they are, right? Girls want to date up, and so if you have fewer and fewer men that are getting bachelor's degrees or going to college or going off, and women are getting
Right.
not only bachelor's degrees, they're getting advanced degrees, master's degrees, and doctorates. Well, how do you date up if most men aren't going to college? Like it puts women in a situation where, yeah, they may have all these advanced degrees and great careers, but they can't find a man because the pool of available men for them is much smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, and there's a higher percentage of women competing for a much smaller percentage of like whatever high caliber guys. That's why you gotta just let go of what you you know what I mean? Just date whoever, find somebody okay. I forget who. God, there's this guy, this black guy who gives like very real dating advice to women. I think his name is Kevin something, and he'll just like
Yes,
he is
I know who you're
so
talking
real with
about.
them. You're 40, you have 2 kids. Like you are not what men are looking for. He like basically makes them acknowledge that they're like low stock and I
Dude,
guess it's like I've never had this problem, but there's women who just like overvalue themselves. They think they're hot shit. They like want the top of the top all the time, and he just like doses them with reality. It's like very entertaining to watch.
they
Kevin
need it.
Samuels, thank you, chat. Yeah,
They need it. They need it so bad. Yeah, Kevin Samuels. Yes, he is so dude. He is
hilarious.
so cold when he cuts them
He's
out
like
too.
he's like these men want a 20-year-old who's hot with big tits, and it's like
Yeah,
you have a kid, and they're like what? They're like I'm working on myself, and he's like that's bullshit.
exactly. Hey, Paul Wolfley, the comments are starting to get spicy. It's great. Paul says women want a guy with similar education, salary. All men go for the 22-year-old women.
Yes, of course.
Yes, completely. It's true. And I saw Camellia over there, by the way. She called you out over in the live stream. She says, if you're dating someone for 7 years, then you're no longer, it's not really dating anymore.
What is it called? Domestic
Common law marriage.
partnership. Yeah.
You got the common law. Are you a New Jersey resident?
New York. Are you in New Jersey?
No, I'm very far away from New Jersey. I lived in New Jersey for like 3 months, but
That's long enough.
yeah, that was enough. But I don't know what the law is in New York, but if you live together for 7 years in a lot of states, then like you are married.
What do you get? Do you get a ribbon or something?
Yeah, a ribbon and 50% of his assets.
They should send you like a set of glasses or pint glasses or something. Do you really? Are you really entitled to money after just dating a few years?
Do you guys live together?
Yeah, but only for like 4 years.
You might want to check because I'm pretty sure in a lot of states you like basically are legally you're not married technically, but you have
He's shaking
like
his head no, just very rapidly back and forth.
yeah, you might want to check on that because I'm pretty sure that 7 years in a lot of states is common law.
Well, then maybe we're just lawless out here.
Shaking his head, he's furiously.
He's going, no, not in New York.
No.
He's like, wrap it up. Time. It's been long enough. No, I'm kidding. No, that's so true. I wish. I mean, I think I knew when I was younger that like really your youth is like your biggest commodity, but I don't know. I spent a lot of time chasing this like comedy dream, and that's it was a real gamble. Like, my mom would say it to me all the time. She'd be like, "Chrissy, you're wasting your best dating years doing comedy." And she was right. So,
Ouch.
no,
Ouch.
she was just like,
Well,
she was just keeping it 100. So, yeah.
Chrissy, it's that time.
It's that time. Austin, where can people find you and follow you? What is coming up for you?
Yeah, I'm AP for Liberty basically everywhere. You type in AP for Liberty on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, then you'll find me there. What's coming up for me right now? I don't have any plans, no tour dates as of yet. But the best way to listen to me is to tune into the KWOS Morning Show, which we do a live stream on Facebook from 6 to 9 a.m. Central, Monday through Friday. So if you go to Facebook, just type in KWOS Morning Show. You'll find me there and join the live stream. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Austin, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you, chat, for your questions and comments and super chats. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Bye.